Previously on The Lion Guard Season 4.
Fur of the fallen, blood of the cursed, venom of those who carry her thirst. From silence and shadows, rise once more, through the death that opened her final door.
How can you forgive me when I killed your best friend, Vitani?
Well, Vitani, looks like you've made a friend, but that's not important for us. See, you have one choice here. Walk with us yourself, or we'll let Kenge bite you and your friend, and drag you guys to Zira ourselves. What will it be?
Vitani and Kopa looked at each other with fear in their eyes. They were completely surrounded by Kenge and the crocs, with no easy way out. Vitani couldn't use the roar here. There were too many animals around. One wrong move, and they'd both feel Kenge's paralyzing bite before they could even react. Kopa stepped forward bravely, even though his voice shook a little as he told Kenge he wasn't afraid. But they both knew they were in serious trouble. They were outnumbered. Vitani pretended to give up, telling them they would come along. The crocs moved in closer, ready to escort them back to Zira. But Vitani wasn't going down that easily. In a flash, she kicked dirt right into Kenge's eyes and yelled at Kopa to run. Kopa knew the jungle better than anyone, and after some time, they were finally able to shake Kenge and the crocs off, but still they kept on running just in case they were still chasing them. Kopa knew a hiding spot where they could rest for the night, but they both knew this wasn't safe for long, and now they had no choice. They had to start their journey back to the Pride Lands. The next morning, their journey began. They kept on walking non-stop, afraid they might be seen by someone from Zira's army. But this also meant they had a lot of time to catch up on everything that had happened. Vitani told Kopa about his new siblings, Kiara and Kion, and what had happened during the final battle with Zira. Vitani had always been trained to attack and told her how Simba was the enemy. Zira took it so far that even Nuka had to die for it. But what she also said is that Kopa had abandoned her, and that he didn't want to be her friend anymore. Vitani always felt something was off about her story, but as a little cub, she'd believed it, and thought Kopa eventually had left the Pride Lands with another lioness. Vitani started to see Simba's family as the enemy as well, and stood by her mother while she trained Kovu to kill Simba. But because of Kopa's great sister Kiara, the plan failed. She was the reason everyone found peace and happiness, except for Zira, and her hatred eventually became her death. Kopa felt bad for Vitani. She had lost so much, but Vitani told him not to feel bad. The way Zira treated her had made her very strong, and that was the reason she could be a great leader for the Lion Guard on this day. Kopa was amazed to hear that Vitani now had the roar, but before he could respond, Vitani started talking again.
The guard! I just ran off and left them on their own. I'm a terrible leader.
Kopa comforted her that everyone makes mistakes. He was the perfect example of that. He left his whole kingdom and legacy. Even more the reason we should speed up a bit. Come on, we have to help. And Vitani and Kopa started to walk faster. Back at Pride Rock, everyone was worried sick about Vitani. Her guard had been searching non-stop, but there was no sign of her anywhere. Kovu was getting nervous. Shupavu's plans were getting better now that they had Zira, and they could really use the help of Vitani and her roar. Just then, Zazu flew in with his morning report, but this time, he was acting nervous.
Sire, you have to check this out yourself! It's a male lion with Vitani!
A strange male lion in the Pride Lands?
Simba was confused. Zazu gave him a serious look and told him he really had to go check this out himself. Simba didn't wait any longer and went out to look for Vitani and this strange lion. Kovu and Kiara were also confused. Who could this male lion possibly be? There weren't any other male lions around in the Pride Lands. But before Simba could get far, Vitani and the other lion were already getting closer to Pride Rock, so Kiara, Kovu, and Nala decided to go check it out as well. They caught up with Simba, and when they finally reached Vitani and the lion, they were all in a big shock. There was Vitani, looking tired but otherwise okay, but it was the lion beside her that made everyone freeze. He looked so much like Simba that for a moment, no one knew what to say. Nala's eyes went wide and her legs nearly gave out beneath her. "Kopa?" she whispered, barely able to get the word out. Simba stood frozen, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "It can't be," he said. But it was. After all these years, their long-lost son had returned home. Kopa took a hesitant step forward, then another. "Mom? Dad?" he said, his voice breaking. Kiara watched in shock as she realized the truth. Mom? Dad? That means this has to be her brother. But why had she never heard of him? Nala burst out in tears and hugged Kopa. She then told Kiara that this was indeed her brother, but that it was a long story. They took Kopa and Vitani back to Pride Rock so that they could catch up. But before they could all talk about what had happened, something else was happening. In the distance, dark clouds were forming over the watering hole where Zira's spirit was. Something was happening, and it wasn't good. Back at the watering hole, Shupavu and her team were talking to Zira, who wasn't happy about what had happened. Her screaming anger created dark clouds above the watering hole. After all these years, Kopa decides to return at the worst moment possible. But that wasn't even all. Kenge and the Crocs had the perfect opportunity to get them, and they let them get away. But as she was angrily screaming, she realized something. She knew that her spirit was alive through the anger that connected her to the Pride Lands and Outlands. So now that Kopa has returned, that means there is even more anger now. This was perfect. Simba and Nala would be confused for the next couple of days and won't be as alert as usual. That is what gives her team the perfect opportunity to create more chaos.
Listen carefully,
Zira told Shupavu and the others.
I need you to spread word throughout the Pride Lands. Tell everyone the truth about Vitani and Kovu's past. Tell them how they were trained to kill, how they can never truly be trusted. Tell them Kovu has tricked Kiara so that he could become king and have power. That Vitani only created a new lion guard so that she could have the roar and eventually destroy the Pride Lands with it.
Her plan was simple but effective. Create doubt and fear. Turn the Pride Landers against Kovu and Vitani. And while everyone was distracted by conflict within, she would find a way to destroy Kopa once and for all. Meanwhile, Simba had scouted Zazu to check out the dark clouds above the watering hole, but when he arrived, they'd already disappeared, because Zira was long done talking, and the skinks had gotten into action. But even though Zazu reported back, they knew it was time for a plan. They had to follow Rafiki's words, defeat Zira by letting go of anger. But now that Kopa had returned, there was a whole new source of anger. Because not only Vitani and Kovu were mad at Zira, no, also Kopa blamed her for destroying his life. And that is when he told the rest of the family everything that had happened. He knew he wasn't supposed to play in the Outlands, but still, he wasn't to blame for something that Zira did to him. Zira tortured and abused him. He'd barely survived, and that is why he stayed away from the Pride Lands. Kiara couldn't believe she had another brother all this time, but if he was older than her, what would that mean for the throne? Would she still be the future queen? She knew this wasn't something to discuss now because the Pride Lands were facing bigger problems at the time, but Kovu was just as shocked. Why did Vitani never tell him about this Kopa? He finally felt like he wasn't alone in Zira's torture, even though Kopa had to go through much worse things with her. He now knew it wasn't his fault, but Zira's. He looked over at Vitani. She didn't say anything, but her face said enough. Zira had done some terrible stuff, and now her spirit was back, making things even worse. Not long after, Rafiki showed up at Pride Rock. He had felt something was going on, and when he saw Kopa standing there, his eyes went wide. For a second, he didn't say anything, and then he just whispered,
The circle returns to itself. The lost prince returns when he is needed most.
Everyone gathered around while Rafiki explained what he meant. Kopa had been hurt the most by Zira. If anyone could stop her now, it might be him. But not through fighting, through forgiveness. That was the only way to break her power. Before they could figure out what to do, a young zebra came running up the rock, totally freaking out. Rumors were spreading fast. Stories about Kovu and Vitani, their violent training, and their dark past. Some animals had already started doubting them.
It is already happening, Rafiki said with a serious face. Zira is trying to tear us apart from the inside.
Kovu didn't hesitate. Then we have to stop her together. He looked at Vitani, who nodded without a word. Then he turned to Kopa. Will you help us? Kopa looked at his family, then at Vitani. Honestly, he had every reason to hate Zira for what she did to him, but revenge wasn't why he came back. I'll help, he said. Not for revenge, but to finally end this for good. So, the next morning, the group made their way back to the old watering hole. The same place where Zira had been brought back, the place where it all began. Kovu, Vitani, Kiara, and Kopa stood at the edge of the water, with Simba and Nala not too far behind. You could feel the tension in the air. Rafiki stepped forward.
Now it is time, he said. Speak your truth, Kopa. The water is listening.
Kopa looked down at the dark water, remembering everything, what she had done, what he had lost. Zira? He called out, and just like before, the water started to bubble, and Zira's face appeared again, dark and angry.
Well, well,
she hissed.
The little prince grew up. Come to cry about the past?
Kopa's paws were shaking. Everyone was watching him, waiting. This was the moment. He had to forgive her to break her spirit. That's what Rafiki said. But Kopa couldn't do it. His voice cracked. I thought I could, but I can't. Before anyone could stop him, Kopa turned and ran. Away from the water, away from the others. He didn't stop when Vitani called after him. Didn't even look back. He ran and ran, all the way to the borders of the Pride Lands. Eventually he slowed down and sat near some rocks, trying to catch his breath. He had failed his family again. But then he heard a voice. Hey, are you okay? Kopa jumped and looked up. A lion was standing nearby, with a red-brown mane, a scar across his eye, and a calm look on his face. Who are you? Kopa asked, stepping back a little. The lion walked closer. I'm Kion. I'm part of the royal family. Who are you? I don't think I've seen you around the Pride Lands before. Kopa blinked. Wait, Kion? As in, Simba's son? Kion nodded. Yeah, why? I'm Kopa, he said. Simba's son too. Kion just stared at him for a second. Wait, what? He said. You have a brother? Rani asked then. Vitani already told me I had a younger brother as well. It's all a really long story, but I definitely am your brother. I've had some trauma, and I ran off from the Pride Lands until I came across Vitani again. She took me back home, or so I thought. Now I'm not sure if I made the right choice anymore. What did you mean with again? When did you meet Vitani? Kopa told him that it was all a bit complicated, but that Vitani was his best friend when he was still a little cub. But then, Zira tricked him and almost killed him. She was the reason he eventually ran away from the Pride Lands. Well, I had met Zira before, and she had tried to trick me too! But before Kion could say anything else, Kopa warned him. Seeing as he was becoming a dad, he shouldn't go to the Pride Lands now. Now that Zira's spirit is back, it wasn't safe for them to go to the Pride Lands. But that also turned on something in Kopa's mind. His little brother was becoming a dad, and was responsible. And he couldn't even say 3 words to a ghost and save his whole family. He had to go back and make things right. I have to go back. I just realized something, but you shouldn't come. It's too dangerous. But Kion, being Kion, didn't stay behind, of course. When the Pride Lands are in danger, he still feels like he has to help protect it. But he and Rani were still super confused. What possible new dangers could be there now? So then, Kopa explained what had happened. How Shupavu and her new army were causing trouble for many animals. How they woke up Zira's spirit and got even more help to cause trouble. And if they ran into the pregnant Rani, she would be an easy target for them. So that is why he suggested they stay back. Why would you even travel when you're pregnant? Aren't you putting yourself in unnecessary danger? Kopa asked. Rani nodded. Yeah, we know, but family's important. We haven't told them about our cub yet, so it will be a nice surprise. And I think they can be a great help to get us started. Kion also didn't have a doubt in his mind. They would help the Pride Lands at all times. But there was no time to talk further because you know who had also reached the borders of the Pride Lands were Kenge and the Crocs. And it wouldn't do any good for Rani's baby to get bitten with his venom right now, so they had to get on the move, and fast. But Rani wasn't as fast as they hoped, so Kopa decided to run before them to get help. Kion could wear them off with the roar for now, but they had to do something. Kopa went on to get Vitani's guard. He wasn't ready to go back to Zira's watering hole yet, and he knew that the guard was trained to help them as well. The guard helped escort Rani and Kion to Pride Rock for safety, but now Kopa really had to go back with them. In the meantime, everyone had gone back to Pride Rock, discussing a new plan, but nobody expected to see Kopa return with Kion and Rani. But Kiara didn't even look at that. The first thing she saw was Rani's belly. Wow, Rani, are you pregnant? Kiara happily asked. Well, Rani broke the news then and explained how they had thought to safely deliver their cubs with family surrounding them. They expected there wouldn't be any danger in the Pride Land, so they thought it would be a happy surprise. But Rani was too far in her pregnancy now to travel all the way back to the Tree of Life, so they had to stay here, even though it was more dangerous. It only meant that they had to make Zira and her team disappear faster. The good news is that there were now 2 roars in the Pride Lands, but before they could continue to make a plan, Kion first had many more questions. He had a brother? But why had he never heard of him before? Kiara joined the conversation, also mad that their parents had never told them about a brother. But Simba and Nala explained how they didn't want to scare Kiara and Kion. If they had told them what they thought had happened to Kopa, they might have always felt scared and wouldn't dare to go out on adventures alone. And besides, talking about Kopa was really hard for Simba and Nala, and all the animals in the Pride Lands understood that. That is why no one really brought it up, especially not with other animals around. Kiara and Kion slowly began to understand. They would have been much more afraid of Zira if they knew this. It really made Kion think of how he wanted to raise his cub. It was like Simba could read his mind because they didn't even get the time to congratulate him yet. Simba and Nala were very happy and proud. They knew Rani and Kion were going to make great parents. But there was no time to really catch up because before they knew it, they heard strange sounds coming closer and closer. They soon realized that what they heard were crocs and jackals. Shupavu's army tried to close them all in. But why? they would never be able to take them all down, so they must have something else on their mind. Everyone was super confused. What were they thinking? The first thing that went through Kion's mind was that if they want to take Rani, do something to their cub as some kind of revenge on Simba. But Vitani saw more trouble for Kopa. Zira could use him too. Everyone panicked. What was their plan? Well, if you want to know what happens next, make sure you hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our new updates. Let me know in the comments what you think Shupavu's army is up to, and I will catch you next time.